Hey friends, hey besties, welcome back to my bedroom floor. Today I'm finally bringing to you guys the unhaul video that I've been talking about for weeks and saying that I'd filmed and then lost the footage for and that I needed to refilm. We're doing it. We are doing it. I'm filming this and I'm actually going to post it the same day. Like, that is how committed to providing you guys with this video I am. So without further ado, I'm just going to get into it. I haven't actually counted how many books there are. I think there's probably somewhere in the region of about 20 books here. I have actually unhauled more than this as well, but that was kind of a few weeks ago and I just had a load of boxes of books in my garage and I needed to get rid. So I think I actually unhauled probably somewhere close to 200 that had just been in storage for ages and that I wasn't like ever going to pick up and read again. But these ones are gonna go. These ones are a bit newer. These are more recent reads. In fact, every single one of these bar like two I've read this year and I'm just like, I'm ready for them to go. So without further ado, let's just get into it. The first book is We Had to Remove This Post by Hannah Bovots. So this is a translated little novella. This was originally written in Dutch, I believe. And it's basically about like a content moderator for a social media network. I think it's probably loosely based on Facebook or Meta. And this girl's having to kind of see all of this like awful material every single day. And it kind of is about how it affects her mentally. However, that's how the book's pitched. I will say that to me reading it, it didn't really match the synopsis at all. I wanted more of that. As somebody who's worked in social media and marketing for a long time, I was really interested to see how they would kind of handle those topics, and instead it was just kind of not about that. It was more about her like interpersonal relationships, and in particular the relationship that she has with one of her co-workers, and it didn't hit for me. It was only a short little book and I really didn't enjoy it, but I think I read it in like 12 hours. I actually read that this month, so it is going, but it's going to go back on my wrap up pile now just so that I don't forget to talk about it at the end of the month. But yeah, I didn't like it, so I'm not going to keep it. The next two books I actually was like umming and ahhing whether to unhaul because I did enjoy both of them, and I love the editions of these as well. Both of these are Waterstone special editions, but honestly, again, like I'm not going to reread them, and at this stage it just seems pointless to keep books that I know I'm never going to reread and that aren't like, haven't changed some of the fundamental like chemical balance of my brain. For example, like Sarah J Maas, like even if I never reread Throne of Glass or Akatar or Crescent City, I would keep them purely because like those books are so special to me. Same with like Magnolia Parks, right? It has to be that level of special now for me to hang on to a book or a series or whatever. So without me continuing to ramble, the next book I'm unhauling is Nightcrawling by Layla Motley. I think I gave this one like 5 stars. If you guys have seen my recent wrap up, you'll have seen my thoughts and feelings about it. I really love this book. This edition is absolutely gorgeous. As I said, I think, oh God, is it signed or is it just... No, it's not signed, but it is just the exclusive edition. But yeah, I'm just not going to reread it again. I've read it once, I really enjoyed it. I want to pass it on to somebody else who will be able to get the same level of enjoyment from it. And similarly, I'm going to get rid of Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. Again, this is beautiful Waterstone special edition. I'm just not going to reread it. It was one of my favourite Sally Rooney's. I say one of, I know she's only written 3. But I really liked it. Like, I really liked Normal People. But I'm never going to pick it up again. So it's gonna go. I was actually, the next book on the pile is my least favourite book of the year so far, but I will save that till last because it's a bit of like a rant review. The next book's probably going to be quite a controversial one, but I'm going to get rid of My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. I read this a couple of months ago, finally, after having it on my TBR for literally years. This one came in at a 3-star for me. It was okay. I just think, and I think I said this in the wrap up where I spoke about this book, I enjoyed the story, but I think it's been so hyped now on social media that it was just built up in my head that it was going to be this like life-changing, incredible read, and it wasn't that for me. Like, it was okay. I enjoyed it to a point, but I wasn't obsessed with it, and I know I'm not going to reread it, so I'm going to get rid. There are going to be a few books in here that people are probably going to be like, oh my god, that's my favourite, and I just want to put out there, this is like no shade at all to your favourite books. Like, none of these books, aside from the last one that I'm going to speak about, are on here because they're awful. Half of them I really enjoyed. It's just because I don't want to keep them any longer. So please don't be offended if your favourite book is mentioned. Next I have Highest Bidder by Georgia Lacar. Again, I enjoyed this. It was like a 24-hour read for me, I think. I believe, if I can remember correctly, I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't anything like genre defining or groundbreaking. It was just your typical like billionaire romance. It did have like a sex club theme to it, which was quite interesting. This girl kind of auctions off her virginity to the highest bidder, and the highest bidder is this billionaire that she's known for years. And yeah, like, it was fine. It was fine. It was a bit angsty. I think the thing that like I disliked about this the most, and again, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in whatever wrap up this was featured in, it would have been a while ago. This, I think, was written by an American but set in England, because there are a lot of Americanisms that have been trying to like be passed off as British, but it just didn't really work. So that was my only complaint for this. But I mean, I enjoyed the story, and I don't think, unless you've like lived in London or England or are British, I don't think you'd necessarily pick up on those little like discrepancies. So yeah, it irritated me a little bit. Then we have I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. Again, really enjoyed this. I think I gave it like a 4 star. Really interesting kind of commentary on like parasocial relationships and how our obsessions with like online creators and personas can actually harm our personal and real life relationships and the kind of the value that we put on ourselves. Really loved it. Very short book. This was a Women's Prize long list, I think. But again, I'm just not going to read it again, and it just seems silly to hang on to books that I'm never going to revisit because they're taking up valuable space on my very small bookshelves for books that I am planning on rereading. Then we have Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. I read this one last October. It was a very small little horror novella. Cover is objectively absolutely terrifying. I remember picking this up in Barnes & Noble on a whim because I just saw it and was like, oh, I need to read that. It looks terrifying. It wasn't. It was another little 24-hour read, just quite disappointing. I think it was about a group of friends who travelled to this like random really old house. I think like 2 of them are getting married or something, and then there's like discord between some of the others, and it's all a bit like tense and angsty, and then this house is like haunted and possessed, and whatever it is that's possessing it, like, I think tries to kidnap one of them. I don't know, it was okay, but it just kind of, I think because it was such a short book, it was trying to do so much that it never really felt fully fleshed out. And I think that had it been like a full-length novel, I probably would have got a lot more enjoyment from it, because I think that the ideas could have been better explored and expanded upon. But it's fine, you know? I think I may have changed position ever so slightly because my camera just died on me, so I do apologise. Next up we have Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. This was another one that I read this year and really enjoyed. I think this was like a 4-star read. Very good. It talks a lot about kind of student-teacher relationships and the Me Too movement. It's actually kind of largely about the Me Too movement from the perspective of a wife whose husband has been accused. And she's of like a certain generation. She's not really like understanding, I guess, the importance of Me Too, and her just kind of views on feminism and everything are just wildly outdated. It's very interesting. The views that are expressed by the main character, I do not for a second think represent the views of the author. The author is very young. I think this was supposed to be just like quite an uncomfortable read with a very morally grey and unreliable main character. I really liked this right up until the ending, and I just feel like the last chapter or the epilogue, there was a lot that kind of, it wasn't not explained, but I feel like the development of certain relationships within the course of the book, and like the big thing that happens towards the end of the book, I feel like that's just been shrugged off too quickly by this epilogue, and everyone's getting along way too well, in my opinion, for what's happened. So other people may disagree with me. I think up until that point this was a really good book, but yeah, just that ending just kind of didn't really work for me, and it was just a bit disappointing, and yeah, I don't know. Anyway, these next 2 books I think are going to be the ones that people get a little bit hurt over or upset over. So the first one is City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I believe I gave this like 3.5, 4 stars. I loved the first, like, probably the first half of this book. I remember texting my friends and being like, oh my god, you guys need to read this, like, 'cause they all love fantasy. They were like, I said to them, you know, you need to read this. I found this amazing new fantasy series. I'm so excited. And then, I don't know what it was, but it just kind of fell flat for me. And I don't know if I just went into a bit of a slump halfway through. I don't know, but I started to not enjoy the book as much. So by the end of it, it just dropped to like a 3, 3.5, 4 read, probably more like 3, 3.5. I have got the second book in the trilogy because I did want to read all 3, but I was kind of hanging on to this until I'd read the second one, and I'm honestly in, like, my feelings now are just that I'm probably going to unhaul the second one once I've read it as well, because I just don't think it's for me. No shade, if it's for you, I love that, and I'm really glad that you like it. It's just not my bag. And the same with this one as well, which I do feel really guilty over, but that's Jade City by Fonda Lee. I think I gave this a 3.5 as well. Again, I was hooked at the beginning, and I loved the beginning, and I liked the end, but I just really, like, the middle section just really fell flat for me, and it just wasn't my favourite. And I just feel like, again, I have the second book in this trilogy as well because I wanted to read the whole thing. Just not my favourite, but my friends actually asked if she can have these 2 books, so I'm going to send them to her because I think that she will enjoy them, and then I can pass on the second book of each of the trilogies as well when I've read them, because I think she'll like those too. So that's nice, you know. Then we have Several People Are Typing by Calvin Kalsulki. This one was a quick read from earlier in the month, or last month should I say. Fairly sure I gave this one like 3, 3.5 stars. It was really good. I'm just not going to reread it again, but it's very interesting. It's written entirely in like chat log format, so it's a very, very quick and easy read. And this is about a guy who is researching winter coats, and he does a spreadsheet and wants to send the spreadsheet to his friends at work so they can weigh in with their opinion on this winter coat choice. And he accidentally uploads his consciousness to the company's Slack channel, and chaos ensues. It was really good, and it has ignited within me a fear of being stuck in my company's Teams chat. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I would have fun, to be honest, stuck in my company's team chat. They are a fun bunch, but still, yeah, it was a fear I never knew I had until I read this book, and now I'm like, okay, that's fine. The next book I'm getting rid of is All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. I think I've spoken about this at length on this channel already. I hated this book so much. I hated the whole thing. I'm not a Colleen Hoover stan. I enjoyed a few of her books when I read them the first time, and then realised, sorry, I just realised that was sticking out of my shoulder the entire video. How annoying. And then I kind of just realised that my opinion on her had changed a lot, especially in light of all of the information that came out about her over the last 12 months. Just kind of left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. Unfortunately, at that point I had already bought quite a lot of her books, and I don't like to unhaul a book without reading it. That is like my rule. I have to finish a book. I do not DNF books, and if I unhaul, I can only unhaul books that I've read. So anyway, I passed on Ugly Love and November Night and It Ends With Us to my mum, who's currently reading Ugly Love and actually really enjoying it. So I feel like maybe she can have this one as well. I just don't know if she'll enjoy it either with the subject matter, but I don't know, guys. It really triggered me, and I've never been in that position that the character's in, so I had no reason to be triggered by it, but I was really, really triggered by it, and I don't know, I didn't like it. It just made me feel really sad, and I was just not in a good place when I read it, so that is why I'm getting rid of it. Next up we have One Tree Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I actually love this. I think I gave this like a 4.5 or a 5 star. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I just know I'm not going to reread this book, and I don't love the cover, so I'm just going to get rid. I'm hanging on to Evelyn Hugo, Malibu Rising and Daisy Jones, however, because I love those books so much. I also do have Carrie Soto as well, which I just haven't read yet, so yeah. Then we have book 1 and 2 in the Demon Queen Trials series by C.N. Crawford. So that's City of Thorns and Lord of Embers. I really enjoyed these when I read them, or rather I really enjoyed this one. This one I didn't enjoy quite as much. When I read this, I honestly thought that like I discovered this amazing new fantasy romance trilogy that I was going to be obsessed with. And then I read the second one and just never felt called to pick up the third one. So I'm just going to get rid of them because they've been on my shelves now for, God, like 2 years. And I've not picked up the next one, and I've not been particularly interested to, so I'm just not going to bother. Then we have The Dangerousness Making Bed by Mariana Enrique, which is like a collection of short stories, all translated from Portuguese, I believe. I think it's set in Brazil. Very good, very macabre, very unsettling, but just won't reread them. I'm not a big short story girly, so any kind of short story collections, unless they absolutely blow me away, don't tend to stay in my possession. I tend to find that like usually the first story in a short story collection and then maybe like the last one are really good, and the middle ones all just kind of taper off, so it's just a bit annoying. I'm also going to get rid of Luster by Raven Leilani. I loved this book. This was a 5 star. It was one of my top books of the year last year, but again I'm not going to reread it, and I kind of feel like I could pass it on to somebody who's going to get more enjoyment from it than I am now. Like, there's just no point in it sitting on my shelves, so it's just gonna go because it's taking up space that needs to be freed up for all the other books that I have on my TBR that I've not read yet that will need a home if I decide to keep them. I'm trying to be really strict as well. Like, if I really like a book, then I will keep it, but if I'm just about a book when I've read it, it's going in the to-go pile. Like, that's it. And I send all my books to the local charity store or to friends rather than kind of selling them. I just feel like I've got my enjoyment out of them, so I may as well just pass them along, you know? Anyway, I then have Vicious by LJ Shen. I didn't really enjoy this book, and also I found out shady things about LJ Shen after reading it, and I have no interest in continuing the series or holding on to this, so that's why it's going. I think it was like a 3-star. It was okay. I don't know, I've read better, honestly. I've read way better romances, and it's just not holding any kind of temptation for me. Then we have Book of Night by Holly Black. I feel guilty getting rid of this one because this is the nice Waterstones edition, but I just wasn't really a fan of this. I had such high hopes for her first adult fantasy, and it just felt really short for me. I like the concept a lot of like the shadows and everything and like the magic system, but it just, I don't know guys, it just fell short and just didn't really deliver on what I felt like it promised. So, and I know that I'm not alone in thinking that. I think a lot of people actually returned this. I think people kind of expected it to be like the Court Prince Folk of the Air trilogy, and obviously it's not going to be because it's her whole different like adult fantasy series, but yeah, this was not it. That was not it. And then finally, the worst book that I have read this year and last year combined, and maybe even the year before as well. I picked this up because Booktok was going on about how it was one of like the best dark romances ever, and so I fell for it because I am nothing if not gullible and easily influenced, and it was awful, and that is Heartless, Heathens by Santana Knox. I gave this a very begrudging 1-star because I had to rate it something on Goodreads, but otherwise like I would have given it 0. This was one of those where I really wish that I could DNF books, because honestly, like, I was reading a couple of pages and putting it down and being like, I hate this book, the writing's so bad, I cannot do this. And then I pick it up and try and power through, but it was painful at every single turn. But this is basically, I think, loosely influenced or inspired by the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And basically follows this girl called Romina who is stuck in the clock tower at this university that is controlled by the religious sect, I suppose. I think it's like it's supposed to be Christianity. Isn't, I guess, like a very similar universe to ours, but just kind of like maybe like 20 or 30 years in the future. It's like a post-pandemic society where in that society religion has taken over as like the ruling entity in the country, which I'm assuming is supposed to be the USA, and so it's taken over kind of corporations, the church has taken over schools, people's education. And anyway, this girl's being kept in this clock tower by Frollo, who is like a priest. It's set at Notre Dame Parochial College, by the way, so that's the loose link to the Hunchback of Notre Dame. But yeah, so she's like being kept prisoner by Frollo, and she's never been allowed to like go outside or like join society or whatever. And then one day this group of boys comes to the school, and they're from these like, I guess, like anti-religious sect or whatever, and they join the school to like cause a load of chaos and try and find out about the secret that Frollo is hiding. So they move into the clock tower below Romina, and she's supposed to keep herself hidden, only of course she doesn't, and they discover her, and then it becomes this whole thing, and then she starts this like sexual relationship with all 4 of them. And I mean, I feel like it could have been done better. The story had promise, but my issues, firstly, the writing was terrible. Secondly, none of the characters had any kind of redeeming quality about them. Like, I didn't care about any of them. I didn't like any of them. None of them were well written or fleshed out. It was so badly done, and it was just so unbelievable. Like, a lot of these books obviously are unbelievable. They are fiction. They are not set in necessarily in our world, and they're not supposed to be, and I get that. But there was just no kind of link between how a human would behave in any of the situations that this girl was put in. You know, she's never been around other people. The only person she's ever been around is Frollo. She's never really left her clock tower. She's never been outside. She's never really watched TV properly. She's never seen all of these modern, you know, conveniences. And all of a sudden she's thrust into this world and she's just like fine. She's not dealing with any kind of real PTSD or like traumatic sensory overload or anything. She's just okay. And I'm like, that's just not how it would be. There would be like a real sense of trauma. And I think honestly that annoyed me the most. Like, you know, if you're going to do something, okay, do it, but at least make it semi-believable and realistic. So anyway, I gave it 1 star, begrudgingly, and I will not be reading this, and I do not recommend this to anybody. So that is all the books that I am getting rid of. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, as always, please do give me a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below. Do not forget to subscribe if you are new, and I will see you in another video very, very soon. Bye guys.